So good morning, everybody. Welcome to a very special edition of the warm-ups this morning. With us in the Zoom room, we have two of the most prominent horn players in the Hollywood studios. In my order that I see them on the screen, Mr. Steven Becknell. Mr. Steven Becknell is the professor of horn at USC here in Los Angeles, and the principal horn of the Los Angeles Opera. And on pretty much every movie that you've heard in the last 20 years. So Steve, good morning.
Good morning.
Great to see you. And under me, well, just to my left, is another studio legend. He's the principal horn of the Hollywood Bowl Orchestra, and on hundreds of movies and TV shows and video games, a whole bunch of stuff. All around legend, and the horn professor at Cal State Long Beach, Mr. Dylan Hart. Good morning, Dylan.
Good morning, Andrew. Good morning, everybody. It's nice to see everybody's face. You all are looking very, very fine for being so early in the morning, at least on my end.
So I think this is the first warm-up that we've had where all of our guests are on West Coast time, and so if we all look a little sleepy, that's because it's actually really early for us, and we're surviving. So I thought we could start this morning. Steve and I were having a chat. Steve's got some ideas about what he calls the pro warm-up. So I thought we would start with that. Steve, what do you think?
Yeah, let's do it. You know, the word warm-up is funny for us because it actually kind of has two meanings. We call it a warm-up, but it's really a routine. It's the exercises we go through every day to keep our skills and our fundamentals honed and improve our playing. And it's very important because I work with my students on developing their own routine. I ask them exactly what they do each morning from the first.
Well, and we lost you, Steve. You muted.
Oh, interesting. I'm back. Did you hear any of that?
After you said you ask your students what they do for a routine.
Oh, yeah. And I want them to be efficient. We got to be efficient with our time. So I find out what they're doing. I try to weed out redundant exercises, in some cases pointless or sometimes even harmful exercises. And sometimes I hear, well, I've been doing this exercise since junior high, and well, you know what? It may be time to move on. So efficiency. Put your limited time to the best use. But today, I want to talk to you about the actual warm-up, the actual way you approach the horn first thing in the morning, the very first notes. And I told Andrew I'm calling this the pro warm-up, especially how you handle yourself when you're a professional, when you've had a lot of heavy playing all day or even into the night. Because in the studios, that 10 a.m. call that we have, that's not a rehearsal. It's a concert. You're performing right from the first notes of that day. You have to be ready to produce right then. Sometimes they turn on the red recording light right from that first go at 10 a.m. So you got to be ready to go. And after Andrew's played Mahler 6 or I've done a 5-hour Wagner opera, we may not be feeling fresh as a daisy first thing in the morning. So let's talk about why real quick, because I've heard people say, well, my lips are stiff from last night. But, it's not stiff like an athlete who just ran a marathon, whose muscles are stiff, and they need to stretch their hamstrings. We don't need to stretch our lips. We don't got to do that in the morning. We don't need to do lip yoga, downward dog. No, none of that is going to help us. We need to get the swelling to go down because our lips swell up after the beating we put them through. So how do we mitigate that? The pro warm-up. And you know what? The pro warm-up starts the night before, after you played your last notes of that night. So first thing I do, now this is only if you've had you don't have to do this every night, but if you've had a tough day of playing, when you get home, fold a paper towel, grab an ice cube, and just start rubbing it on the lips while you're watching reruns of Green Acres. Well, that's what I do. You don't have to watch that. Or sports, whatever. Just do it as it melts. Just do that. Help the swelling to go down. That's your first step. Next morning, you're going to continue the pro warm-up. When you get up, first thing you get out of bed, just kind of start rubbing your lips a little lightly with your, get the blood flowing. We got to get that lactic acid or whatever the stuff is that causes swelling and puffiness. And then eventually, after a couple minutes, start, and especially during the age of COVID, you got to cover your mouth when you do this. Do some blubbering. Everybody go ahead and do that. Just cover it up and do that blubbering. It's good. You got to get that blood moving because you don't want to start playing on swollen, bigger lips. That may cause you to kind of adjust your embouchure or, cause you to want to bear down with the mouthpiece. And that can cause you problems the rest of the day or even longer. So, all right, so good. You've done all that. Now, before the mouthpiece even touches the lips, breathing exercises. Wake up your breathing muscles. We're going to do a couple of those right now. You don't realize how just a slight reduction of your air affects your embouchure. So the first thing I do, first thing to get my inhaling muscles going, and I want you all to try this, we're going to make a fist. We're going to seal it against our lips. And the tighter you squeeze your fist, the more resistance. So I want you to exhale all the air out of your lungs, and we're going to inhale through this fist. Okay, ready? Exhale. Put it on. Now inhale. All the way up. Try that again. When you're done, exhale. Put it on. As high as you can go. You feel it's kind of a funny feeling, but you are warming up your diaphragm muscles. You're getting those going. And now, for your support muscles, for the exhale, here's an exercise I've hijacked from a famous principal horn in one of the philharmonics in the country. It's Andrew Bain's exercises. The two fingers in front of your lips, and you're going to exhale really fast and blow through that like this. Everybody try that. Big breath. I really like this two-finger thing because you feel the air if you're blowing hard, which you need to because we're warming up our breathing muscles. And you can hear too. So you got a twofold thing to really make sure you are warming up those muscles. All right, so now we're finally ready to do some actual blowing here. Now, there's two schools of thoughts about buzzing. I don't do any buzzing without the mouthpiece. I do a little bit with the mouthpiece here. Just kind of, I view it as sort of like calisthenics. We're just kind of limbering up. We're getting a good vibration because, this is California. We got good vibrations out here, right? It's like the song. So I just do a very little bit. I don't spend a lot of time with that. That's just to make sure because I figure if you've got a good vibration going, you are ready for the horn. So a little bit of that, often in the car on the way to the job. I'll do that just to make sure I'm limber. And then I recommend another school. I know some people like starting down in the pedal register. I recommend starting just in the middle range. And before I turn it over to Andrew to do his usual warm-up stuff, this is what I do. Just start in the middle range, gradually, spreading out into the other ranges. The goal here is you want to keep you're striving for just a full resonant sound. No forcing, no tightness, no anything. You just want to resonate, get the sound going on your horn. So I don't do the same thing every day. I just kind of do little scales and spread out into the other registers of the horn. And then I'll probably just go up a half step from there. So I do that. I actually warm up quite quickly. I get up to a high C within the first minute of my warm up if you've done the pro stuff before this. And then I go down to the pedal range because it's really good to have that ability to warm up quickly because there are going to be times life happens, bad traffic, the kids threw up on the carpet, whatever. You don't have time to warm up. You sit in the seat and you got to be able to go fast. So that's that's my whole philosophy about this pro warm-up, getting ready to go so that when you're ready to go, you can really warm up quickly. So we'll come back later, I think, and do some other exercises I do in my routine, but that's my philosophy, and I'm going to hand it back over to our host here.
Cool. That's awesome. Thank you, Steve. Terrific. Yeah, that's the one thing that always grabs me about listening in the studios to Dylan and Steve is when, you know, there was always ability to be able to be on point straight away, right at the beginning of the call, and then we might have been sitting around for like half an hour doing nothing, and then suddenly they pick up the horn and I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing, and they're already sounding like, you know, like it's a movie, because it has to be, and it is a really interesting mindset that they have, and it's something that is very, very different than in a symphony orchestra. There's a big change. In the orchestra, we know when the concert's going to start, we know what's going to happen, we can prepare for that. In the studios, you can often be sitting around, right, guys, for like 2 hours doing crosswords, and then suddenly they're like, okay, now we're going to play that entrance with the horns, where they have to play at the top of the stave 8 horns perfectly soft and coming together. And having not played the horn for ages. So, being able to warm up quickly, being able to deliver immediately is a really important thing. So that's fantastic advice. All right, let's start with 2 and 2. Really, really simple. We're going to start on an F concert B flat at the bottom of the stave. I'll talk in concert pitch for Dylan and Steve today, because that's what they think in. And it's always a challenge for me. So concert B flat. We're going to do 2 half notes with a half note rest without articulation, and then 2 half notes with a half note rest with articulation. Very, very simple. We're going to start with the mouthpiece. We can blow this through the mouthpiece just to feel. It's great that Steve's done these breathing exercises. This is fantastic. They're really, really helpful. So just breathe and blow through the mouthpiece. No articulation the first 2. And then with articulation. Perfect. So starting on concert B flat. Nice and simple, nice and easy. We'll do one more, and then I'm excited to hear from Dylan about his warm up. This is going to be very cool. So let's go. We'll continue on. So we're at concert F. We're going to continue on down. I'm just going to do a repeated note pattern. So the idea is to keep the air moving exactly the same. We're just cutting the air with the tongue. We'll just do call and response. You guys are pretty familiar with this one if you've been here before. Okay, terrific. So that's a good start. Just focusing on moving the air and getting everything nice and simple to begin with. So, Dylan, talk to us about warming up.
Hola, everybody.
Ideas.
Um, so yeah, what Steve said is absolutely right on. It's not really a morning warm up; it's a morning workout. Vince always used to tell me, "It's a morning workout. You have to work every day." And in the morning workout, you have to be sure to hit all of your fundamentals to make sure that you're prepared for the day. So as studio players, we never know what we're going to play. You don't know if the day is going to be some sort of sit and do crosswords and play games on your phone and read a magazine and play a couple notes, or you don't know if it's going to be blow your face off craziness. So you have to be prepared for anything. So my warm up consists of different aspects of fundamentals, and I consider that it takes about 45 minutes to 50 minutes. I have an abbreviated version to use, but I try and go through all of my paces. And the first thing that I do in the day is called Chromatics, and I sent out a worksheet last night at like 1 a.m. So
We Dana will put that, or Tori or Maya will put that in the Yolanda will put that in the chat. Perfect.
So there's three things that I put to do, and the first one is chromatics, and the second one is long tones, and the third one is overtone series. And in the studio world and in LA, long tones are pretty much our entire history, right? If you talk to the old guard, Vince DeRosa and Jim Decker and all those guys, their teachers, who were Al Brain and James Staliano, told them, play long tones, play long tones, play long tones. And Vince used to tell us, play long tones, play long tones, play long tones. So long tones are extremely important. However, I wouldn't suggest doing long tones very first thing in the morning, because they are a bit like lifting weights, and you don't want to first thing in the morning go to the bench press and start doing deadlifts right when you wake up. So I like to start the day with something that I take out of the brass gym, and the brass gym is done by Sam Palafian, the late Sam Palafian, and Patrick Sheridan, who are tuba players. And Patrick Sheridan studied with Arnold Jacobs, and those two also developed a thing called the breathing gym. And the breathing gym is unbelievable, and you should start the day with breathing exercises, just like Steve said. And the breathing gym is a whole kind of program for that. You go through stretches, you go through breathing. It's really important to work yourself out from the inside, as well as learning how to flow through your instrument without your instrument. So I start off with chromatics, and chromatics are very, very soft. I try and play them as soft as I possibly can. I start on a low B, concert B, and it go up to a tritone. So it starts on a F sharp written below the staff, and it goes up a tritone, and it goes 3 times, and then I repeat the last note and I hold it. So everybody go ahead and try that. I gave the PDF so you can look at the music if you would like. Now, I think for the rest of this exercise, we're going to try and play it at the same time, because ideally what we want is we want to be in constant movement. We want to be putting our air out, and then as soon as we're done playing, we want to breathe in for 3 counts, and then we want to turn that air around. We don't want to hiccup. We don't want to go. We want to breathe in and out very smoothly. So your body is in constant movement and constant flow. And 2 really important things. Number 1 is we try, remember the law of accommodation, which is what is hard for you today is not necessarily going to be hard for you tomorrow. But we want to be playing at our extremes. We want to be pushing ourselves for something that's very, very challenging for us, so that we could be trying to expand our abilities. And also try and play this from a musical standpoint. Every exercise that I play, I try and imagine that I'm on stage and that this is a solo and that this is what's going to be recorded and this is what people are going to listen to. Because adding the musical element to your fundamentals really gives you a great product from it, and it keeps you from getting into well, this is one thing and playing music is a completely different thing, because they should be the exact same thing. Okay, so let's go ahead and start. We just did the first one, so we'll start on the written G, which is the second line one, and we'll play this all together so that we can keep in constant movement and so everybody's not waiting. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, breathe in. Okay, so let's take a pause there. I have my natural sound on. It's just playing that soft doesn't always get picked up on the microphone, so I might play a little louder so you guys can at least hear it. But as we go higher, it gets a little more challenging to play that soft. So constantly remind yourself, A, this is music, play musically, and B, challenge yourself to play as soft as you possibly can play. So as we go higher, it gets harder, so keep reminding yourself soft, 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 and play as soft as you possibly can. If that means that you airball something, that's great. You know where your limit is, right? And you want to try and push that limit, and you want to try and be able to play softer and softer and softer and softer. but I think you all get the idea. So I think we could probably move on. I don't want to take 45 minutes playing this one exercise.
Awesome. Yeah, terrific. It's certainly one thing that you notice when you play in the studios with all these guys is that their ability to play soft and just creep in on stuff is quite amazing. And the one of the most annoying things about playing in the studios is that the microphones are very good. And they pick up absolutely everything, and you get this, guy in the booth saying, "Yeah, horns, can you just sort of sneak in on that?" And you're like, "Oh, I thought I was," but they pick up everything. So listening to Dylan soft play it's fantastic, and it's a really important thing to remember. And also for when we're doing even in the orchestra, when conductors say, "Oh, horns, can you play softer?" It's like it's a horrible feeling if you can't. So pushing that limit is a really important thing. All right, let's move to a little bit of scale work. Very simple. Repeated note. No, actually, let's do slow scales this morning. Starting on. Let's start on. Where did we get to then? Oh, well, let's start on a G. So concert C. This one, yeah, great. Klaus, the PDF is in the chat. It's a link in the chat, so you'll be able to click on that. Yolanda put that in the chat for us. It'll also be all of the PDFs will be in the IM community page on Facebook as well. So this exercise that I just did is actually James Stamp, one that I stole, as is the case normally. Me stealing everything. So we can in Dylan's made a very good point. We don't need to be waiting around. So let's keep moving. We can play this one together. We move up to an A flat, so concert D flat. I think, is that right, guys? D flat, is that right? Always takes me 5 seconds to work it out. Okay, 3 and. And believe it or not, I am actually on original sound, so not much I can do about that. Ellie, does it sound okay? Okay, cool. Let's go to next semitone up. 3 and. Oh, and just because it's in my contract, as we all know, we're going to go down to concert B. It's the last one we're going to do of this. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with what I'm talking about, I cannot play in the key of F sharp major. It's actually something that is a neurological problem that I have, and I've been working on it, so I have to do it every week. So we're going to do horn F sharp major, 3 and. Great. So I managed to sync that up beautifully with the recording I made last night, so that worked perfectly. Fantastic. Yeah. All right. Steve Becknell, what is the most fun movie that you've played on?
Wow. I think when you're young, it's real exciting before you get old and jaded. So some of my earlier movies, like my first John Williams movie, was just total excitement. It was the movie Hook. and I was just in awe of being there. So, yeah, the earlier ones are the most fun. Dances with Wolves, that goes way back. That was a fun one.
So who was the horn section? Who played on that film? Because that film, like that hunt scene with the din da din da din da da da, that's the big famous thing from that, right? For the horns.
Well, there were several.
I'm not thinking of. I'm thinking of a different film.
Yeah, I think you're thinking of Robin Hood. But
what I'm talking about.
well, Jim Thatcher was playing first.
Right.
It was memorable for me because Rich Parisi was there. Now he was Vince DeRosa's kind of, partner, and he was 70 at the time, and that seemed horribly old to me when I was 30 years old. But I got to sit right next to him, and he was so nice and just was telling me all these stories all day about Vince and this and that, and that was just a real thrill. So, yeah, like I said, the earlier movies are the more memorable. The older you get, they all just kind of run together. When my mom would ask me, what did you play on this week? A couple of years ago, I'd have to go look in my book to remember what I did because you get old and it's
terrific.
It's a little funny that way. So, can you share my packet? I have a couple exercises.
We will. So we'll get Maya to or Yolanda to put up that link.
Yeah.
And
because I have one I want to do. It was really good what Dylan was doing with the response thing. That's the two things I look for in a warm-up is A, just getting that resonance, but also how responsive are your lips, especially as you get soft, because that's obviously real important for all horn playing. So I have this exercise, if you can, is it up there yet? And let me see. Yeah, soft response right there.
In the chat.
So I'm going to turn on my, hopefully you can hear this. Hear my metronome, and let's do all this together. We'll just go up a little ways. The key to this exercise, no crescendo. So you're going to start on that first note, just keep it going, and then do the decrescendo. See if you can keep that response as you're, tonguing those notes, and how far down can you decrescendo without losing the note. And don't try and pinch with your lips. Just keep the resonance going, and I'll give you a hint. Don't drop your support on these. Don't think, well, it's softer, I'll just relax my air. No, there is a trick to horn playing. Soft playing, you got to keep that air moving. Even a double piano, the air stream has to keep going at that same speed. So let's try some of these. We'll just do it all together. I'll count off one bar, and like I said, take yourself to the limit. How far soft can you take these things down? All right, so let's try the first one. It starts on an F. If you guys have it up here, just a simple little scale. So 1, 2, 3. Good. Remember, keep that air going. Here we go. Next one. That one quit a little early. Here we go. Next one. Good. We'll do one more. A flat. Ready? 1, 3, 4. Good. So that's a real good exercise, getting that response going. And it's actually a good exercise if you've had a big day of blasting double forte and your lips feel like a truck could drive in between them. Do this exercise as the last thing you do before you put the horn away. It just kind of gets the focus back in there. There was a period of time when I was in my late 30s, I decided I'm going to do a warm down after a heavy concert. Usually in the opera we've been blasting, and so I would do similar things to this, middle register stuff like that, soft. Since then I haven't done that for a couple decades now. I think it helps, but you know, it's tradition, and at least in the opera pit, that your goal is to get to your car before the audience does. So I don't do that anymore. And honestly, and I'm sure Andrew's the same with me. After that big Tchaikovsky spectacular program, I don't even want to feel the mouthpiece on my lips by the end of the day. So I don't do it anymore. Maybe it helps. I don't know. But it's a great exercise, this one is, for response.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, Steve, because I have actually seen you at the bar after concerts of the opera. So clearly you have not raced to your car.
Well, that's a different kind of warm down.
Oh, okay. That's yeah, getting the coolness on the lips. Yeah, it's interesting at the Hollywood Bowl. It's definitely a race after the Tchaikovsky Spectacular. It's a race to the car, and we have stacked. As these guys know, we have stacked parking at the Hollywood Bowl, and if you're at the front of the line and you hold up anyone, it is
major, major no.
Yeah, so you've got to get. In fact, a lot of the horn players actually, even though they have detachable bells on their horns, will actually bring in fixed bell cases so that they can get off the stage quicker at the Hollywood Bowl. So this is a good tradition, but you can always warm down in the car on the way home, I think. Or something like that.
Yeah, or something.
Yeah. All right. Terrific. Thanks, Steve. That's really, really great. Yeah. Dylan, what is your favorite film to have played on, or video game, or TV show, or?
I don't know. It's hard because it's like Steve said. It's hard to kind of remember what you do. And it's not just because we're getting older, although I assume that that's probably a big part of it. It's because what we do is when somebody says, "What are you recording today?" I can tell them, and then they haven't heard of it because it hasn't even been advertised yet, right? It's 4 months out from being released, and nobody knows that it's even coming out, and so you can't say that. So the movies that are out, you recorded 4 or 5 months before that, and since then there have been a dozen projects, and they also use fake names a lot of times. So they'll use working titles. So you're like, "Oh yeah, I played Deep Blue," and they're like, "What's Deep Blue?" And you're like, "I don't know." And that's ended up being Ready Player One. And so you just don't know what you're really doing sometimes. Sometimes you do, like they named Star Wars something cute, like Trixie, or I don't know, and everybody was like, "Yeah, Trixie, sure." Nobody puts that in their book like that, but yeah, I think my favorite is the different composers. We did some stuff with James Newton Howard recently. We did it last February for Jungle Cruise with The Rock and Emily Blunt, and it still hasn't come out, but it's amazing. And recording stuff at home has been really fun. I did all 6 horns on SpongeBob, and I did all 9 horns on Top Gun 2, which also still hasn't come out. But it's been kind of an interesting time.
Did you find you were easy to play in tune with?
Oh God, no, no. That's why you have to do long tones.
All right, Dylan, give us speaking of long tones. That's a very good segue.
Thank you very much. It was stuck landing. So yeah, so long tones are extremely important. There's lots of different ways to do long tones. I had like a 1-page sheet that I kind of hand drew about how to do things. I don't know if you have that, Yolanda. It has like kind of okay. So anyway, basically there's long tones, there's pulsing tones, there's balloon tones, there's thank you very much for my shirt. It's from Sarah Willis. There's a lot of different ways to do it, and so one of the ways that Mr. DeRosa used to make us do long tones is you start piano, you put your metronome on 60, and you start piano, and you move up to forte, but you get as loud as you can before your sound changes. So you're just trying to get as full as you can before you have a color change. and you're trying to expand what that is, because you need to be able to have the color change, and you need to be able to not have the color change, because in the studio sometimes they're like, oh yeah, we want it huge but we don't want any brass, or sometimes they're like, we want it piano and super brassy. So you have to be able to have all the different colors at your disposal. So let's put on a metronome at 60, and we'll try one of the long tones. So we'll just start on C and move until our, whoops, not 16th notes. So you start piano, you get full, and then you hold, and Mr. Taros always told me, you hold until your stomach jiggles. So you want to hold that out as long as you possibly can. And some days it may be longer than others, and some days you may sputter out, but you want to see how long you can hold that piano. And he said, until your stomach jiggles. So whatever that means. Some of you may not have a jiggly stomach, but you know, I know who I am. All right. So let's give it a start. I'm gonna count for 2. We're gonna breathe in for 2, and then we'll start piano, get as full as we can, and then go back to piano and hold. 1, 2. Oh, I forgot to tell you what note we were going to play. I'm just playing concert F, so C right below the staff. Okay, 1, 2. Very good control for you. It's very good to learn how to live with that kind of like CO2 deprivation, and how to get to that end part of your breath, because that's not necessarily somewhere that we want to go all the time. We don't want to play our phrases to the end of our breath all the time, because we have an auto response from speaking that kind of gets us to grunt, because we learned how to speak at a very young age on the lower part of our breath spectrum. So we kind of want to stay out of that for most purposes, but for this purpose, we're going to try and learn how to control it and keep our sound from wavering. So let's move up minor third to concert A flat, so E flat, written at the bottom of the staff. 1, 2. One, 2, in. I gotta telling you what notes we're gonna play. So let's move up another minor third to concert C flat. Okay, 1, 2. Very good. Okay, so that's the basic form of long tones, and when you play long tones, you shouldn't spend an hour on them. Pick, pick an interval and move up from there or move down from there, and that's it. Because if you do this every day, you will cover the entire instrument. You will cover all the different pitches. I think a lot of people get discouraged from long tones because they try and do it chromatically, and it takes an hour and a half to go anywhere on the instrument, and you're just like, oh, it's really boring. So just pick an interval and move up that way. Some days you may play more long tones because your interval is smaller, or you can say, okay, I'm going to do this for an octave and a half or 2 octaves or whatever. Another way of doing long tones is balloon tones. So it's that same thing that we just did, except it's going to be much shorter because you're getting much louder. So we're trying to get as loud as we possibly can in our long tones. So with the color change, just huge, huge, huge. It'll probably distort, and I apologize for that. So let's try it on concert C. So G. I do play at 440, so I apologize if I'm playing sharp. I don't even have a tuner on my stand right now. It's probably just because I'm out of my mind and early. Okay, so let's play on a G. Sorry, I have lots of water on my horn. Okay, so the way we're gonna do it is really soft to hugely loud to really soft again. So 1, 2. Does that make sense? So that's a different way of doing long tones to give you a different benefit from it. And so especially if you have a break, doing long tones like this through that break is really, really helpful. The last way I want to cover long tones is called pulsing tones. So it's like the balloon tones, except very, very short. So I don't need a metronome for this, but so we'll do it also on G just to give you an idea of what's going on. And so we're going to go wow, wow, wow. See how fast and how loud you can get. This is about learning how the diaphragm works and learning how to get your air to go through your instrument without squeezing. We don't want to engage our Valsalva maneuver. We don't want to squeeze and push our air. We want to see if we can get our air to rush through our horn and give these really fast crescendos. So. On a G, 1, or I'll do 2 and then you do 2. 1, 2. Or 4. Let's move down to a concert A, which is E right at the bottom of the staff. Let's move down to concert F, which is C below the staff. Good. So as we get lower, for me, it gets quite a bit harder to go from soft to super loud back to soft. And that'll help you with your breaks. That'll help you with trying to transition between those registers so that you're not using different embouchures for different volumes. So.
Fantastic. Great. Thanks, Dylan. Awesome. Those all those exercises are in the chat, and we will put them in the IM community for you guys later on. So, Steve, you have a little secret weapon for us.
Well, yeah. Andrew let me shamelessly promote this etude book that I put out, and he strategically placed behind him, it's about 3 years old now, etudes from the repertoire. I'm going to share it. It's in the chat. Most of them are fun except for number 19. I only assign number 19 to sassy students or if they, have been really bad. So, but there's some fun. They're all based on horn licks from the repertoire from opera and mostly orchestral stuff. So check it out if you're interested.
Yeah, it's a fantastic book and really, really great if you're looking to find a different way to practice some of these familiar orchestral excerpts for auditions. There's a lot of stuff in there. It's really fantastic and a lot of fun. It's beautifully written.
Thanks.
Terrific, Steve. Rips. Steve wants us to get ripped.
Yeah. Well, okay, if you can see that, everybody have that one that I put rips in there. This is a real practical exercise I developed a couple decades ago when I noticed Hollywood composers love writing rips for the horn. It's one of the things we can do, other instruments can't really do. And I wasn't as good as some of the older players. I was not as confident. So I developed this little exercise. Here we can all do this. You would do at the end of your routine. Don't warm up on this. I hurt my lips doing Mr. Becknell's. No, this is the end of your warm-up routine, all right? So I'm putting on about 100 here, and you notice it goes from a long note first to a long, rip up to a long note, and then a long note to a short note, and then the rip with no apparent beginning. So that's kind of the 3 ways we have to do rips. So everybody, if you've got the music, let's try this. I'll count a full bar before we come in there. So
Steve, could you do me a favor? Could you explain to everybody how we do rips in the studios?
yes,
Because
I'm sure I should have done that. So
I've gotten
rips,
into arguments about this with people on horn people.
yeah. No, crescendo with your air, hit all the stuff you can going up, and wiggle your fingers as you're going up. Because the goal is to make as much noise as you can going up. So let's try this again. We'll start on that D. Here's the count. 1, 2, 3, 4. Next one, E flat. Here we go. Whoops. Next one, E natural. And one more, F. Good. And the key to that, if I mess up one, if I'm alone, I do that one over. So just get real solid. It's a great exercise to get real confident on those rips so that you could just nail that top note, and the composers will love you.
Yeah, that shocked me when I first started doing recording. I was like, there were so many rips that composers wrote, and it really is a skill. You have to really practice it, because I was overshooting and undershooting and missing all over the place. But this is a great exercise for that. So yeah, thanks, Steve. Fantastic.
Yeah.
And that leads us into our favorite exercise of all time. But before we get to that, I just want to say thank you so much to Dylan Hart and Steve Becknell for your amazing experience and knowledge. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure we could do a whole series on Hollywood horns and warm-ups. We'll definitely have to do this next time we do the warm-up sessions in the summer for sure. Yeah, any last words before? No, so just to give you 30 seconds of warning, Dylan and Steve, we're going to get you to do the elephant at the end, and your Hollywood take on the elephant. And if you don't know what it is, it's even better, Dylan. So that's actually perfect, because then you just get to make up whatever you want. But any last thoughts, any pieces of advice for people who who are thinking about a career in Hollywood, or just want to know a little bit more, Dylan?
Yeah, if you want a career in Hollywood, the way that I say it is you have to just be amazing, be super great, work really hard, and you got to come out and study with somebody who works in the scene, because we're a completely word of mouth industry. It's not, and nobody auditions for anybody, nobody gets a position. So you have to kind of study with somebody so you can get an in, and just be so good that you can't be ignored, and be fun to be around, because as freelancers, if you're not fun, then they just won't hire you. Whereas with orchestra musicians, it doesn't really matter. You got tenure, so.
Thanks very much. Steve?
I always tell people the most important thing to make it in the Hollywood studios is sincerity. And once you can fake that, everything else is easy. Yo, babe, I love the way you sound. Let's do lunch. Mwah. No, I'm just joking. Sorry.
There you go. So some great advice. But yeah, it's amazing. It's really great to be able to get these guys on, because there are so many amazing musicians in the studios that because of the way that Hollywood works, we don't get to see their names on the films. So you've heard Dylan and Steve so many times on films, and you have no idea. But it's great that we can introduce them here if you haven't met them before, and they are on pretty much everything that you're listening to in the movies. And speaking of teaching, so for those of you who are looking for places to go and study in Los Angeles, Dylan teaches at Cal State Long Beach. at the university there, and Steve is at USC in LA. So two amazing options to go and study with if you're looking to further your studies at a university level. So Dylan and Steve, I think the best way to do this is for you guys to do the elephant simultaneously, and that way it will have even stronger effect.
I have no idea what this is, but
Fantastic. It involves rips and some form of descending line. So actually, we'll get Steve to do it first, and because I gave him a demo earlier on.
okay, I was
A
late.
little version. There's my version.
Beautiful, very Hollywood and operatic. I like the combination. Very nice. Okay, Dylan's turn.
That's so much pressure. I don't know what to make up.
It, There you go. We are going to compile all of our guests' versions of the elephant and put that in a clip for everyone at the end of the semester. So this is also so maybe I will demonstrate our regular elephant, and we can play along, and then we'll see you next Tuesday at 8 a.m. If you turn up next Monday, you're going to be sitting in the waiting room for a long time. But come next Tuesday. Okay, so I will attempt. Last one. Terrific. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you so much to Steve and Dylan. Awesome job. Thank you, guys. And thank you, everyone, for coming. Great to see you, and have a great week. Thanks.
All right. Bye, everybody.